we got the Russo brothers dropping their second installment follow up to Infinity War, Avengers Endgame, sitting at uh, I think a too low 96% on Rotten Tomatoes. And Dave, this movie has grossed $1.2 billion in its opening weekend.
1.22 at that update.
Crazy. I think people like this film. People have at least been going to see it, it seems. So yeah, what's your non-spoiler take for people that might just be like, "Ah, should I go see this?" and have stumbled onto this breakout? What's your non-spoiler take before we jump into it?
Yeah. No, I think Avengers Endgame is very effective and satisfying, both especially for long-term fans of the MCU. I think it achieves what it needed to do. It delivers on the promise that Infinity War laid out, and yeah, it has a lot of really great callbacks to past MCU stuff. Much more heavy-handed or obviously than I expected. We'll get into that. But yeah, I mean, for a movie that there's really no precedent for truly attempting to weave this many other movies' narratives into it, and serving this many characters. And again, we'll get into that as well. I was impressed with how successful it is. It's not without its issues, and we'll talk about that. But yeah, it's really impressive as far as blockbuster team up superhero movie with actual legitimate emotional stakes goes. So yeah, I liked it. What about you?
I have not had an emotional experience at a movie theater like I did to this movie, and I was kind of surprised by that. I did think there were going to be probably moments where I like teared up, but like it really hit me in the feels, and I think it was a couple of things. One, I think they really played into some themes that probably just personally touched me, but I think like there's a lot of family, a lot of parent, child type things in here, which are really touching. But also just seeing, I think, the ending to this phase into this through line, these movies that really you and I have grown up with. I mean, Iron Man came out our senior year of high school,
2008.
2008. So my junior year, so it must have been your sophomore year of high school. So I mean, we really have gone from being high schoolers to mid 20s adults throughout this run. So I think movies. Yeah, crazy that there's been this much. I think that was probably it. I think they landed the ship really well with this. I think they gave appropriate send offs to all the characters that got their send offs, and I think they also kind of reshuffled the deck, so to speak, and identified the core moving forward, which is exactly what we kind of said they needed to do for this. Give the OGs their proper send off in a fan servicey way that didn't feel overly fan servicey, I think, and also kind of set up where are we going next. Yeah, so if you are watching this video, we're gonna get into spoilers. There's really no way to talk about this movie without spoiling it, so just go see it. You're probably one of like 5 people that that haven't seen it at this point, so I'd recommend just going and doing that so you can talk to them about it. All right, so I don't know what the best way to talk about this is. Maybe just kind of going piece by piece through the movie. It really starts off with Hawkeye, and he was absent in Infinity War. You catch him at home with his family. They go through the snap, very leftovers-ish, where he turns around, everybody's just gone.
Can I interject real quick on this?
Yeah.
In my theater, and I think this is a very well made scene, very effective setting and up, reestablishing where we are directly in the story.
Yep.
Similar to how the Ant-Man 2 credits scene goes. There are people in my theater that like fucking gasped in shock when Linda Cardellini and crew disappeared.
Really?
What did you expect was gonna happen? And I was seeing it on fucking Thursday night. I was supposed to be there with the hardcores. People are like, whoa. You're like shocked or sad. Like, what the fuck do you think you're about to watch? Come on. It's really well done, but why are you surprised? Anyway.
Yeah. Wow, that's actually just like baffling to me. Anyways, yeah, I think that did a really good job of reestablishing where we're at, what the stakes are. Um, Clint goes on to be Ronin. We'll kind of get back into that, but basically, they go back and the Avengers. It's 5 days after the snap.
5 days?
No, it's was it like 20 days? It's very soon after when they
Yes, yeah. It's quite soon. Yes, you're right. I was
yeah.
thinking of further along.
Um, and then they basically go. They find out that there was this gamma energy somewhere in the universe. Rocket identifies it, and they all go and they attack Thanos,
With
who's
Captain Marvel in the fold now.
yeah, and man, Thanos just trying to eat these spiky fruits and enjoy his life, and he gets beheaded by Thor. It's like
Went
just
for that.
went for the head. But basically, he had destroyed the Infinity Stones. They weren't able to undo the snap, and he says, "I am inevitable."
Right.
Cool. Uh, five jump 5 years later. The world trying to move on. Captain America is now leading AA meetings, basically, or like snap
Grief
anonymous.
counselor, I
Yeah.
guess.
Um, and the first MVP comes about, and it's that rat who gets Ant-Man out of the quantum realms, just steps over some buttons, restarts Ant-Man. He comes flying out, finds out he's been in the quantum realm for 5 years, about like 5 hours to him.
The key.
And yeah, and he lets them know, hey, we might be able to go back in time and figure this out. So they get Professor Hulk, who Banner's now been able to merge himself with Hulk, so he's one omniscient, in control being. Uh, Natasha, Black Widow, is really at the head of everything, getting everybody back together. They start to figure out this time travel stuff. Tony is out of the fold because he blames Cap, really, but just wanted to go have his own life and feels a lot of guilt about everything. They get him back in the fold. Now he has a daughter. He figured out the time travel stuff. I mean, kind of just going kind of very broad over this because there's a lot
Well,
of plot here.
yeah. Well, I think that whole setup, um, really the second piece of action where they all go and kill Thanos. I think that was largely unexpected. That they were going to initially fail. He destroys the stones. It's done. It's over. And I just didn't expect, and obviously we get way into this in a second, but I didn't expect them to immediately lean into time travel right away because it clearly was the only path to success.
Right.
You know, so that kind of surprised me that would be the case. You know, everyone just kind of assumed they would go after Thanos and fight him, but no, he gets rid of the stones. You know, it's just a little. It was just a little cool little zag, a curveball. You know,
Mm-hmm.
um, and the lead up after that, once we see like what's going on, and having Nat just kind of struggling to keep it together, Hawkeye is just off kilt, killing
Yeah.
Yakuza. Hulk, as you mentioned, being one and the same. There's a lot of cool choice. I think ultimately this movie serves as the best Black Widow movie thus far.
Oh,
We're
definitely.
getting one later. The best Hawkeye movie, because again, Hawkeye has barely been in the movies, and I think his most screen time was in the first one when he's like a zombie Loki bad guy.
Yeah.
And also kind of like I don't know, like the best Rhodey movie, the best Nebula movie. They give a lot of time to these side characters, especially the OGs, and that required a lot of balls. That was definitely a choice, and the process you're giving the best to them. But I think it also, at least for me, maybe the narrative kind of ebbs and flows depending on what characters we're spending time with. What did you feel about having Hulk being one and the same up until he meets Ancient One when they start going back in time? I mean, because having Banner just be another smart guy. I mean, it was cool. And it was really fun. The selfie scene in the diner
Mm-hmm.
was
Yep.
great. I loved it. But having him just be in control, I just don't know if that's as makes Hulk as interesting when he's just playing second fiddle to Tony as a smart thinker. You know, like Ragnarok, I thought was the best Hulk we've got. I wouldn't say it's the best Hulk movie. I think Ragnarok's the best Hulk movie because you get both sides of Banner. You know, what do you think?
I really actually liked it because I think in Infinity War, Banner was probably the part I liked the least. You know, Hulk kind of gets his ass kicked by Thanos right in the beginning, and then it's just Banner.
Yeah, exactly.
I kind of hated how they he couldn't figure out a way to get Hulk to come back out, and I like that they merged them just because I think people want to see Hulk, but I liked seeing an in control Hulk throughout the movie. Um, to kind of talk about your point where these characters are getting their shine, they did a really good job of like shifting the movie gradually. It starts off with like Cap and Iron Man having their fight, or I guess Iron Man just yelling at Captain America and then deciding I'm not a part of this anymore, I'm out. But then it really shifts to being about these ancillary characters, and I think that that's a really smart move because it lets them have their shine, but then by the end, it shifts back to the ones that you want to see. And then at the very, very end, obviously it's wrapping up for the others, but it really, that the final battle that we'll get to brings in the next crew. And I think it does, it kind of like hands the baton off in a way throughout the movie in a really appropriate way that made a lot of narrative sense.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and around this time, we see what's going on with Thor and
Mm-hmm.
having New Asgard be settled. I think we knew about that at the end of Ragnarok, but
Yeah.
going there and seeing Valkyrie right away, great. Love Tessa Thompson. She comes back later, but seeing that Thor has let himself go
Yeah.
and he's hanging out with Korg and Meek, like
Great bit.
hilarious. I think having Thor, that is Hemsworth is basically playing a whole new character now. This is basically movie 3 of his being funny Thor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ragnarok, Infinity War, now Endgame, and I just really like. I think Hemsworth's performance is just so much better. Thor's just way more fun, you
Yeah.
know. Now, not to jump ahead, but they again had a lot of balls to have us revisit Thor: The Dark World and explore one last time Thor's relationship with his mom, a character that was super undercooked
Mm-hmm.
in the 2 Thor movies and before she dies in Dark World. So I thought that was definitely ballsy. But overall, I really like Thor because again, I just love this new campy, funny Thor. It's just better. It just works better. The better he's in the better movies than the other ones. So I'm a big fan of that. I think it was really funny. Like, there's a lot of cool gags with the Fortnite thing and him just now being kind of a functioning alcoholic. Like it was great.
Well, and especially because Thor is a superhero, he doesn't have that sharp wit of Tony Stark, which allows him
Mm-hmm.
to be serious, but also like put these like moments of levity in. So you kind of have to make him a bit of a doofus a little bit. But I think that plays really well also into Hemsworth's strengths as this character, and
Yep.
um, I just I think he over the last couple movies has just been the biggest revelation, and definitely going to be a building block. Seems like for Guardians moving forward. So we'll probably talk about that a little bit more at the end. I just want to jump back into the plot and kind of get into this. So, Paul Rudd, I thought was really really great as Ant-Man in this, and I think he brings a lot of levity to that first hour or so, which is really needed because like you mentioned, we're doing a lot of leftover shit. They figure out the time travel. There's a great scene where Paul Rudd's going back and forth with Banner, and he's an old man, then a baby.
Really good.
Yeah, really, really, really effective scene. Stark comes, they figure out the time travel, and then they decide to go back in time and steal the Infinity Stones before Thanos gets them. So they go back to the Battle of New York, which people were calling out. There were some leaked set photos, so people kind of knew something was going to be coming
Because of the costumes, I think
right.
was what gave it away. Yeah.
Costumes. And I thought that was a really awesome choice. Pulled in a couple of different things. I think kind of giving us this behind the scenes of like what was going on around them. So even some extra scenes that really like adds this feeling of like
Yep.
reality to it, which is really cool. And also like shout out Matthew Barry who
Yes.
made a cameo in this. What the fuck? Almost
He's
like
a Disney employee.
yeah, crazy. But I thought that was really effective, especially because they show them when they first are circling up is when they're jumped into the battle.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really effective to be like, oh, this is like where they came together,
The
and now
splash page.
yeah, just really well done. As you said, they also jumped to Thor: The Dark World. They jumped to Infinity War for the Soul Stone
And Guardians Galaxy 1 in the very beginning.
when Quill is dancing around to Norman Greenbaum, I think.
Yeah.
One of those. What do you think of jumping to these different movies? And then maybe let's talk about some of the issues with the time travel in this.
So I think it was really funny that the time travel is set up with the Pym particles from Michael Douglas. We basically have this new MacGuffin that's being used to go get the old MacGuffins, the Infinity Stones. That was Just kind of funny meta thing I noticed. Uh, but yeah, I mean, obviously the choice to go back to old movies in such a obvious way is is interesting and cool, and I think it works really well because it leads to these personal moments, specifically Cap looking longingly at Peggy Carter, and of course Tony's pretty long, substantial conversation with his father.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Also, we get Nebula and War Machine watching Quill. Definitely a weird combo. Um, and I thought that one really didn't really matter that much, except for getting us established with the return of Thanos from the
Yeah.
other timeline, right? And the Nebula connection, the R2D2 of it all, right? So
Mm-hmm.
interesting and another unexpected way to we're going to bring Thanos back from the other timeline. Like they're really getting truly leading into the possibilities, potential of time travel in your stories,
Mm-hmm.
which is funny because leading up to it, they make fun of Back to the Future and Hot Tub Time Machine and all these other
Yep.
movies that have done it in real life, right? And I think ultimately, Endgame has a lot of the issues that arise when you introduce time travel in terms of the rules that you set up just not making sense. And
Mm-hmm.
the more you think about it, the more confusing it gets. For
Yeah.
example, Thor in Dark World, he gets Mjolnir back, he gets his hammer, which is great. And it leads to the first genuine moment of cheers in my theater when Cap wields it
Yes.
towards the end,
Yep.
which was awesome, which actually is comic precedent. I didn't know that. But to raise the question, so in the other timeline that still needs to function properly, Thor just doesn't have his hammer. It's just gone, just
Right.
flew away, right? You can't think about it too hard.
No.
That's kind of the issue with time travel. But overall, I think it's done. It's told very confidently and ultimately works pretty well.
Yeah, my biggest time travel, I guess, like nitpick is, you have Captain America who chooses to go back in time and just live out his life without being Captain America. And it's like, how does all this happen if Captain America isn't in any of these timelines? Like, my brain can't wrap itself around a lot of that stuff, and I'm just like,
And also in that timeline, there's still a frozen Captain America, we assume.
right. So,
I don't know.
yeah, none of
Yeah,
it makes sense to me.
it
But
doesn't take away from the send off. We'll get to those later. It
exactly.
just, you can't think about it too hard. It just doesn't work.
And that's the thing, is that you're suspending a lot of belief with these things if you're really getting hung up on the time travel, which I haven't seen a lot of it, which I'm happy about. But if you are, it's like, why is this where you're drawing your line? I think you're looking for something to
Yeah,
nitpick
okay.
and just not enjoy it at this point.
Sure.
And just to speak quickly, I like that they went back to all these movies. They really kind of drew in all these different parts of what has made this run up so great, and it expanded on different characters in really great ways.
Yeah.
Stark gets that moment with his dad. You mentioned the Peggy Carter moment, but Thor getting the moment with his mom. I think seeing Quill just being an idiot was just fun and like a
Without the
good.
music, too.
Yeah, and then you pull Gamora back into the mix, which we talked about in our last pod. I wasn't sure she was gonna be able to come back. You get to see Loki in the Battle of New York. Steal the
Tesseract.
Tesseract, which I thought was also just really funny and well done. And Tom Holland just like showing out for like that 1 second, then he's out
Hiddleston.
again. Yeah, Hiddleston. Sorry. I thought it was really
But
great.
that also leaves another question. Loki now has the Tesseract in the other timeline
We're
after
not
he
talking
loses the scepter from the normal alternate event. So it's like, what the hell does that mean? Is that the Loki we're going to see in the Loki TV show on Disney Plus? I
Yeah,
guess. I
maybe.
don't know. Probably. Ultimately, I think my favorite single, I think the Stark's conversation is great.
Hmm.
And I think really warm. And RDJ is, we'll talk about him in a second. But the scene after Loki's defeated, the end of Avengers 1, when we see the return of Crossbones and the other Shield agents, and then Robert Redford's character, all these guys we meet in Winter Soldier before we learn that they're bad dudes.
Hmm.
Cap saying "Hail Hydra" to them in the
Yeah.
elevator, and that walking into the elevator is a callback to the elevator fight in Winter Soldier. A great scene.
Anybody want to get out before we start?
But having him literally lean into Hail Hydra, that is a textbook perfect payoff that works
Yep.
so well. And I mean, really, that leads into the fans. If you missed Winter Soldier by chance, which is certainly possible, you could probably see most movies without seeing Winter Soldier. You'd figure it out. That one now, you have no idea what that referenced,
Hmm.
because Hydra just evaporates as a threat
Yep.
after that. So, but yeah, I thought that was my favorite part. Cool
Yeah,
to
and
see
also
Redford and Frank
something,
Grillo again.
and I think
Natalie
also,
Portman pops in Dark World, doesn't say anything. Sure, cool.
speak to the Cap moment. I think that also speaks to character growth, and I think that's something that they really highlighted in this is how the characters,
Yes.
in ways, back off of where they began and realize that they have to do things that they wouldn't have done back in these times.
Cap's just less of a dork.
Yeah, but also like he never would have said Hell Hydra back then. Like it would have been like totally against his principles to say something like that. And now he's like, sometimes you got to do stuff that you don't want to do in order to make the mission successful. And I think that also comes out a bit when they just kill Thanos right in the beginning of the movie, which Cap would have probably been totally against. We need to jail this person or whatever it is. And
Sure.
his character grows a lot. Anyways, the the plot is successful. It's a heist movie for like these, like what, 30, 45 minutes where they're back in time, which I thought was really cool.
A lot of Act 2.
Yep.
Is that, yeah.
And it's successful, but Nebula is caught. Thanos finds out what the plot is, and 2012 Nebula replaces 2022 Nebula,
right?
24, whenever it is Nebula, and goes back. And this will eventually allow Thanos to come in, 2012 Thanos to come into 2024 in order to try to stop the Avengers. But in the meantime, they get the stones back.
Wait, we kind of skipped a part. One of the stones they get is the Soul Stone. They go back from Infinity War. Hawkeye and Black Widow go. We get Red Skull once again being like, "You must give something of yourself,
a soul for a soul."
Yeah, I it's not Hugo Weaving anymore. I know it, but I just kind of like Red Skull. It's just this ridiculous, over the top villain. I thought having him come back in Infinity War was just kind of a cool nod. The first Avenger, but having them like both wanting to kill themselves, and like as I'm watching, I'm like, fuck. I don't actually know which way this is going because I know they're making the Black Widow movie in 2 months, and Hawkeye is getting a show with Kate Bishop.
Yep.
So what's going on? And they went with the movie character, which I thought was ballsy. I mean, I wonder how much of that was Scarlett Johansson's choice to like get me out of the current timeline, please. I'm kind of done with this role that ultimately has been pretty undercooked for an actress of her caliber, if we're being honest. But as I said, I think it's the best Hawkeye role and best Black Widow movie thus far. And I really liked how that went down.
Yeah, sure. I think it made a lot of sense to put them together to get the Soul Stone, and for them to have that like battle to like stop each other from killing themselves and wanting to sacrifice themselves for the other was just a really well done scene. You're right. So I did miss that. Jumping forward though, so they get all the stones together. Stark creates I don't know, glove that can hold the stones. They decide Banner has to do it because it emits gamma rays and it would probably kill anybody else. Does the snap, and they get to enjoy it for like 5 seconds. Ant-Man gets a call from his daughter.
As it goes, like, oh look, there's some plants outside.
Yeah. Nice. And then immediately Thanos has come to the future and is just dropping bombs on Avengers headquarters, and they all survive somehow, which unbelievable. Maybe an unanswerable question how they all survive, but they do.
Especially Hawkeye.
Yeah, I mean Hawkeye, crazy.
Rocket.
Anyway, basically it leads to Hawkeye having to keep the glove away from, was it the Krill or whatever those are that are fighting.
The dog things? I have no idea what they're called.
I have no idea what they are.
Not the Kree, not them.
Yeah, not them. But really what it leads to is Thor, Iron Man, and Captain America taking on Thanos, who's just waiting down below, while Nebula from the future and Gamora from the past fight Nebula from the past.
Yeah.
Very, very confusing. We could talk about that.
But that's the thing. At this point in the movie, we are fully into this is a time travel dimension hopping film.
Yes.
And even Thanos is like, so in 9 years they defeated me. And it's like this the liberal throwing out of the specific years things are taking place. It's very self-referential, and it's like it's almost hard to follow in a sense because you're like, they're throwing out some just basic math all the time.
Yep.
But it was funny, like Thanos just sitting there waiting on his Darth Maul shit with his fucking double bladed, I don't know, sword blade thing. But I think that whole setup to that fight, um, I don't think it looked that awesome. That was one of the moments where like, oh, this is kind of Marvel aesthetic 101. It's just going to be some gray, earthy tones because we're in a bombed out building area. But having our three core heroes
Yeah.
first fight Thanos in that way, just badass and awesome. And that's when we get to Cap being worthy, wielding the hammer. Not quite sure how he becomes worthy, considering it was teased, of course, in Ultron that he maybe could move the hammer a little bit. But how did this happen? Because what changed with Cap? You know, I mean, remember he knew about Tony's parents. I don't know. It doesn't matter that much because it's a great moment and a good fight.
Yeah, and he knows how to use that hammer immediately. Just starts balling out with it. I think that's a great fight, and it also just shows because I think people didn't really understand how strong Thanos was as a villain. Because he always had one of the stones pretty much from the beginning of Infinity War. So people were like, maybe he's not actually that strong. They almost killed him, but he's unbelievably strong. Like they're throwing everything they got at him, and you can kind of tell that they haven't fought together in a while because it's a little disjointed. They're not really working together that well. The three, and Thanos just starts kicking their ass, and it gets to the point where pretty much like Thor's incapacitated, Iron Man's struggling, and Captain America's shield has been chopped in half, and you're like, oh, this isn't looking good. And Thanos has the whole army behind him, and he's like, what I'm about to do to your planet, I'm gonna enjoy. Josh Brolin giving
kind of a heel turn from the Thanos that we got before, who was very calculated and mathematically objective about his whole MO with saving life through killing half of it. Right? Definitely a change.
Well, they were ungrateful, man. They weren't they weren't appreciating what he did for them. Anyways, and then we get the moment, and Captain America is like walking out, and it's just like him versus this enormous army, and then you hear, Cap, can you hear me? And it's Sam, coming over the radio, and he goes, on your left, and then you see this portal, this Doctor Strange portal open up behind Cap, and out walks, I think it's
Black Panther and
Black Panther, Sam,
Bucky,
Zuri, walked out, but then pretty much all these other portals and everybody's unsnapped, everybody's there.
Pepper in an Iron Man suit.
Yep.
I think we didn't go. We got everything right. Scarlet Witch.
Yeah.
All the Guardians.
Spider-Man, obviously.
Yep.
The only person that's not there that doesn't come through the portal is Captain Marvel, who has gone off to do something. I can't really remember what it was.
So that was actually something that I kind of noticed right away, and this was theorized pretty extensively. Captain Marvel has a bit of a power problem for the MCU. She's just so much stronger than basically all of her counterparts. So what do we do? And this was thrown out in the Captain Marvel film as well at the end. But like, what are they going to do with Captain Marvel? And it turns out she's helping the other planets, right? Like it's not just Earth that's going through all these issues once everyone died, right? But just sidelining Captain Marvel and just keeping her out of the story, I think works on two fronts. Both the power thing, as I just said, but also because she's so new, having her be so involved in this Endgame time trial story that's clearly about all of the OG characters, plus like Ant-Man and Rocket, right? It just wouldn't have quite fit. But it was cool when she came back, But I mean, did you like that choice to sideline Captain Marvel? Because it kind of seemed like the only path forward for this movie.
Yeah, this movie was so much more than just like the fight against Thanos. It was more about like these characters, like I don't even want to say redemption because it's not even redemption, but just finding a way to bring people back and how they can do it together as a team. And man, if they had Captain Marvel, she would have been like, oh yeah, we're just gonna do these three things because I'm super powerful. I'm a freaking supernova, dude. And then it would have been over pretty quickly. So I like that decision. Just kind of jumping back into it, we finally get Cap saying, Avengers assemble, big fight begins. Awesome fight scene, I thought. Some really cool moments. I think the one of the biggest criticisms I've seen is there's a scene where Captain Marvel finally comes back. She destroys Thanos' ship. Peter Parker hands her the glove because they're trying to get the glove to Ant-Man to do all this stuff. It kind of gets convoluted a little bit, but
Mm-hmm.
and then it's all the female superheroes together. Like, and Peter Parker's like, I don't know how you're gonna get it across there. And then it's like Okoye and Pepper Potts and
Scarlet Witch,
yeah,
Gamora.
and they're like, don't worry, she has help. And people, I think,
Very,
felt like that was a little bit like shoehorned in, almost like too in your face. What did you think about that?
I really liked it. I thought it looked really good.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's on the nose. It's in your face.
Mm-hmm.
So is tons of shit in the MCU. I don't
Yep.
really care. Relax. It's fine.
Yeah, I completely agree. I felt the same way. I actually thought it was a really nice moment and
Yeah.
really well done.
It's also like in the beginning with the grief group. There's just a gay character talking to Cap,
yeah.
and some people are like, "Did Marvel shoehorn this in? Are they trying to make a big deal about a no-name gay character?" And other
Mhm.
people are like, "Oh, it's just there. It's whatever." That's kind of how I stand. I'd rather see than not see it, right?
Yeah, it's part of
So
life.
same thing with the girl power scene. I thought it looked great. It was cool.
Right. Um, and then, I mean, long story short, they basically keep the glove away. Thanos finally does get it. There's a bunch of different superheroes trying to stop him from snapping and taking everybody away. Finally, Stark looks at Strange, who had earlier said, "I can't tell you if this is the one, the 1 in 14 million
Mm-hmm.
chance
Yeah.
or timeline."
Can't fuck
And
it up.
then he looks over at Strange. Strange puts his finger up, which I thought was just an awesome moment. And you see Stark like decide he needs to do something, goes, grabs the glove. Thanos gets it away, does the snap, and the stones are somehow in Tony's suit. And Iron Man does the snap and gets rid of all Thanos' army, including Thanos. And Tony Stark dies from the snap.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what did you think about that as like an ending to Thanos and also Tony, Iron Man's death scene?
Yeah. As an end again, because I didn't expect it to be like different timeline Thanos and just to go about the way. Yeah, I thought it was a good ending because again, how are any of these big massive Marvel movies supposed to end with some kind of big fight like this, right? But we always expected it to snap to be undone in some fashion, and that's what we got, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's good enough for me. I don't know. I think the whole tons of CGI fighting at the end, per typical Marvel fashion, was fine because you see every familiar face you've ever recognized in the franchise. So it's just more fun to watch than usual
Mm-hmm.
as a result. So I liked it. I mean, Tony, another callback. The I am Iron Man right at
Yeah.
the end there does the snap and dies. One of my issues with actually, this is probably my biggest issue with the film and its use of time travel was that early on they set up that Tony is not really interested in trying to reverse anything because he doesn't want to risk what he has, namely his daughter he has with Pepper. And when he finally agrees to it after figuring out, motivated by the loss of Peter Parker, he tells Cap that he wants to preserve the present while fixing the past, right? And that's kind of rules they set up that you won't like change your future by going back in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem with that is when they set it up and like he's like I don't want to change anything, and like him and Cap like have make eye contact and agree. They just set up that Tony's going to make a choice between his kid and the world, and the choice is just never presented because the time travel didn't actually work that way. I thought it was like a weird like they kind of like lobbed the ball up and they just didn't even attempt to spike it. They just kind of changed how time travel was set up. So it was kind of weird for me that Tony's sacrifice didn't like his kid's fine.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought they clearly set it up that he's gonna have to make this choice and there's no choice. It's okay. He's just gonna sacrifice himself singularly, and that's good
Right.
enough. So it's kind of weird because it was on my mind at the end. I was like, wait, so this doesn't matter. But
Yeah,
I thought it was really effective send off for Tony overall.
I think that that's a fair criticism. I think more than anything, it almost parallels Tony's dad being killed when he was a kid and how that affected him. And like he gets that closure with his dad where he says like, thank you for everything, and like talks about like how like his dad impacted him, and I think that kind of helps him come to the realization like if I do have to make a sacrifice like that, it's not gonna ruin my child. And I think that's something he felt a lot of guilt with Peter, and I think those are actually some of the most effective like emotional moments is when Peter comes back and gives him like the big hug, and then when Peter goes over to him and he's dying and is like talking to him. I forgot exactly what he says, but I thought those were really well done. And I
And
think, go ahead.
well, that was a nice callback to the "I don't feel so good"
Yep.
Mr. Stark scene. Having it be reversed, and that. Yeah, keep going. I really like that scene though.
Yeah, no, and I think they actually do a really good job of showing how talking about character growth. Tony, who in the first one is this like playboy and just like this smart ass, really only out for himself, and then you see he has like a soft side for Pepper. Um, really is very selfless and gives so much of himself to others, and you know he flew a nuke into outer space. And what was that? Was that Infinity War?
No, that's the
That was
first one.
that's the first one. Jesus, getting him confused now. But
That's what led to the
um,
PTSD he had in Iron Man 3.
yes, you're right. But even in the funeral scene when they are all at his house or his compound or whatever it is, and you see the boy from Iron Man 3 all grown up
Yeah.
in that, which people didn't recognize him. I definitely didn't. I had to
Nope.
ask you who it was.
Well,
But
it's a new kid, obviously,
right,
a little kid in Iron Man 3. Yeah.
but
I had no idea, obviously.
but all these things that like tie in together, I think really really well and show his character growth throughout these movies, not just in one or two. That throughout these movies he became more and more selfless and realized himself as a character, culminating in who he was in the final one. I think it was a really good send off, and I thought John Favreau was happy with the daughter, and the daughter saying I want a cheeseburger. I thought it was a really nice like way to kind of like tie things in and pull on those heartstrings a little bit more. um but yeah, so they defeat Thanos. uh Iron Man dies. What happens with Captain America, Dave?
Well, Cap Cap goes to put the Infinity Stones back in their timelines, which we don't end up seeing happen. That was something that Tilda Swinton's unexpected return as the Ancient One
Yeah.
um, set up that you have to put these back, otherwise I'm not giving you the time stone fucking over my timeline, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like honestly a moot point that we don't see it happen and make sure it worked because it's about Cap going away and having Cap. It's funny when I was watching it, I picked it up on pretty easily, but I didn't expect Cap to actually come back as an old man. I just thought he would never return because
This
like we because they established with the tech that it's like you'll get as much time as you want over there, and it's only like a few minutes, seconds for us, right? Like the whole uh, space time continuum of it all, right? And then Bucky picking up on it right away, but you get the passing of the mantle to Falcon, to Sam, which is again another thing that has comic precedence.
well done.
Yeah, I thought it was really really great, and having Cap get that last dance, it's pretty warm,
Yep.
So I loved it.
By the way, just you brought up Mjolnir. Am I saying that right? The
Yeah,
Thor's
yep.
hammer. Cap brings that back with him when he goes back in time, so perhaps he actually drops that back in Asgard when he returns the stone to the Dark World, or the Infinity Stone of Dark World, because he does bring that back in time with him. So perhaps he actually does
Does he
return that.
not? Oh, he doesn't come back with it as an old man, right?
Well, he doesn't have it with him as an old man. Perhaps he
Huh,
did, but maybe that would tie up that loose end. I don't know.
interesting.
Anyways, uh, Hawkeye reunited with his family, very happy for him. And then Thor going to be a guardian now, giving Valkyrie new Asgard. Any other Hulk? I'm assuming he's going to take on like a beast like role for X-Men, where he's just going to kind of be like overseeing the Avengers and
Seems like
sometimes
it.
show up in
Yeah,
movies. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
Spider-Man goes back to school.
yeah, and no one aged. So everybody died in the snap at that school, apparently.
Still in school.
Yeah,
5 years later,
whatever.
or whatever.
Cool. Whatever works. Yeah, I mean, overall, this movie I thought hit all the right beats for me. Um, it's really set up. I think Black Panther, Strange, um, Spider-Man and
Captain Marvel.
Captain Marvel as the core four moving forward. And we're going to talk a little bit more next week about what the next phase 4, will be for Marvel. But I mean, just why don't we give some wrap up thoughts here? Because I think we kind of ran through the movie, gave our takes on some of the narrative choices. Anything that we didn't touch on?
Um, let's see. Not unique to this movie, but I was like, oh wait, yeah, they all can breathe in space. No need for
Yeah,
helmets because we want to
right.
watch the actors' faces. I'm cool with it. It's fine.
Yeah, and I think just like my general like wrap up thoughts is I'm like trying to think about the movie. I think they did a really good job of balancing action sequences, which I think are the least important parts of these movies at this point, with uh, the emotional beats, moving the plot along in a way that mostly made sense, beyond the time travel, and also giving all these characters their due time and letting it be funny a lot of the time. I mean, like you said, they made Thor a whole new character in this film, and
Right, yeah, but continuing
yeah,
the
continuing
relatively
his
newness to him from Ragnarok. Yeah.
right, and it's this just it took. I think they very easily could have just let him be like sad, mopey Thor, and like it would have been fine. But they let him be funny, they let him be himself, and I think they did a really good job of letting all the characters get some really funny moments
Yeah.
in there, and
The
I
taco
respect
scene
that.
with Ant-Man.
Yeah, Dave, is this gonna break the all-time record for money earned at the box office?
So, short answer, it's too early to say. We really need to see how the drop, uh, international and domestic, does in the second weekend.
Mm-hmm.
As we said at the top, 1.22 billion global. That's by far and away a worldwide opening record. The old record for international weekend was from Infinity War, and it was only 600 something. So do that math. Uh, Endgame broke the original record. That was Infinity War. It broke that record
Mm-hmm.
by opening day through Friday. Just mind blowing shit. It also made 356 or 7, where we still have estimates right now, domestic. The old record was 257 from last year from Infinity War.
Crazy.
Just a mind blowing monocultural event in terms of movies, in terms of anything. To have something be this popular all over the world. I haven't seen this. Like the China numbers are again blowing away all the records, beating any previous records that were held by traditional Chinese films, Chinese blockbusters, and seeing something earn just as much in China as it did here in the States. It's just unprecedented, especially having that be a Hollywood movie.
We're never going to see anything like this again in our
No,
lifetime.
and I mean, basically, the questions now are 1.2 billion, 357 domestic. What records can it get long term? Because it's gonna, even if we give it the lowest multiplier any MCU movie has ever had, which would be Civil Wars, that would still get it to 800 million range, which would be good for the second most here in the States. That would pass Avatar and Titanic here in the States, but it still leaves The Force Awakens as the highest grossing. The Force Awakens is like 920 something here in the States. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Now, Infinity War only made like 670 or something. It was a little less than Black Panther here in the States, despite having a bigger opening. It needs ridiculous legs to beat The Force Awakens. It's going to get a lot closer than I ever expected. But again, I haven't seen the second weekend yet. I still think Force Awakens will hold on to this record because it is truly an astounding number to earn here in the States. And part of that is because Endgame is having a lot of competition here in May. Whereas Infinity War, in its out through May, it only really went up against Deadpool 2 and Solo, which ended up being a box office underperformer. Endgame gets another weekend to itself this coming weekend, but then we're going to see Detective Pikachu, which has very strong forecasting, uh, John Wick 3, Aladdin, Rocket Man, which we expect to do well after Bohemian Rhapsody's success, as well as Godzilla King of the Monsters. And then June doesn't slow down either. June will have Dark Phoenix, Secret Life of Pets 2, Secret Life of Pets 1, got like 800 million worldwide, big movie, and Toy Story 4. So I just don't think Endgame will truly get those small drops in like
Mm-hmm.
weekend 6 and 7. And that's kind of how you have to make your bucks back to truly get to where Force Awakens got to. So it'll
Yeah.
get close because there's just so much baked in right at 357, right?
Mm-hmm.
But with that, again, if this has a really strong hold in second weekend, it could happen. And to be honest, 4 days ago, I did not think this was going to happen. I just it's just so unprecedented. I just didn't think it was possible. Um, as for worldwide records 2.7 billion. Um, Avatar made 2 billion internationally. Absurd number. It's gonna get that now. It sounds like it really. I think it's going to come down to how much it truly makes here in the states. How front loaded is Endgame, given the competition, But having something have 90% market share as a film, well, I think the most we've seen is 85. It's got over 90%.
Mm-hmm.
It's just absurd, and truly unexpected, And I mean, I don't think the only chance we have of this ever happening again is because again the Star Wars load, that gun was shot with Force Awakens, so
Mm-hmm.
that's off the table now. We've said Lion King. I think Lion King has a chance, but I don't think it'll have this big a start. So probably can throw that out now. The only other chance for something like this is Avatar 2, if Avatar 2 just explodes internationally.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah, I think. Sorry, I think Detective Pikachu is the biggest hindrance there because I think it could potentially have even grossed more internationally than Avatar did. But Detective Pikachu is just going to be so big overseas,
they're
especially in like
projecting like
China.
80, 90 million. That's big for
That's
weekend
crazy.
3. Like
Yeah.
Endgame is gonna win the states, which is
Mhm.
kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah.
So again, we got to see how this second weekend does. But even if it doesn't beat The Force Awakens, that hardly matters because Disney's market share, Disney's domination uh,
Continues.
continues unabated.
Um, Endgame, I think we can both say with confidence, met and I think even exceeded our expectations. So well done, Russo brothers. Really, I'm never gonna experience a movie like this again. So it's something that I'm definitely probably gonna see again in theaters. Got that AMC movie pass, so shout out
Shout out A-list.
to them. Before we wrap up on Infinity War.
I just want to shout out Robert Downey Jr. because I like I love Chris Evans' portrayal as Cap, especially as he's grown, as we said. Um, but Robert Downey Jr. I think is without a doubt the best single piece of casting in uh, superhero films. I have this ahead of Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, ahead of Christopher Reeves as Superman. I think it's clearly the best, and it also Robert Downey Jr.'s just sheer talent as an actor. And again, remember before he had those alcohol problems, he was a big star earlier in his career, really likable. But just the sheer charisma and gravitas he can bring to the role was really, really important, and it led us to reestablishing Spider-Man, something that could not Sony on its own could not succeed with. Um, it helped us pull off Civil War, something that was thought to be very hard to adapt, and ultimately kept this franchise going, MCU in general. And I'm honestly happy that they killed him off for Robert Downey Jr.'s sake, that he can truly leave this role behind, because he has not made really much of anything during this
Mhm.
run apart from like The Judge, and he's a talented dramatic actor. I like to see him do other stuff at this point. But I think ultimately his casting by Marvel and I think Paramount may have had a hand at the time. Like it was just a genius move, and who knows how far this got without him. So pretty wild, man.
Definitely. I agree with everything you said. We got to wrap up there. What do we got next week?
So as you mentioned, we're going to talk about the future of Marvel. Obviously, this is not the true end. So there's movies coming. We know about some of them. Most of them aren't really officially announced. So we'll talk all about that. What we expect. Who's the next Thanos? What's the next overlying plot? X-Men and Fantastic Four on the table now. How are they going to do that? We'll talk a lot about that next week. I think that'll be a fun discussion.